Hi everyone, so I picked up this adorable little stamp set by Waffle Flower Crafts the other day. It's called Lettuce. I think it was just released and it is just so sweet and adorable that I thought it would be the perfect stamp set to do some Zen Copic coloring. So let's get right to it with our card. So for the card, we're just gonna stamp the head of lettuce multiple times all over the card base, and we're going to create a little scene of a whole bunch of little lettuces. And this process of repetition of stamping the same images and then coloring in the same images and using similar colors and having a lot of repetition in the coloring process is what's going to make you feel all zen while you do it. So you should feel nice and relaxed and peaceful while you're working on this project, or at least that was my intent, and that's how I felt while I was doing this. So I wish the same for you. So I cut out 3 masks using Simon Says Stamp masking paper, and I just move my masks along as I continue to stamp the little heads of lettuce up the page so that I don't stamp over any lines that I've already stamped. And then for the background, we're going to use BV23 for the bottom and then BV20 because I wanted there to be an ombre effect to the background as well as to the little heads of lettuce. And for the heads of lettuce, we're going to color them in an ombre color scheme using darker greens towards the bottom of the card panel and then lighter greens towards the top. And you'll see it's going to look really, really beautiful. And if you use this method, I think you'll have a great time. You'll feel nice and relaxed as you do it. I use a lot of different markers here, but you don't need to. I think you could probably, achieve an ombre effect maybe with just 5 or 6 different green markers by varying your, how much of the different shades that you use in each head of lettuce. So you would want to use your lightest shades towards the top of the card panel and then your darkest shades towards the bottom. And so that's what I'm doing here. I am using the darker colors that I have to fill in the heads of lettuce towards the bottom. And for that, I'm going to use a combination of G82, G85, G28, G29, and then I think a little G46. And for each head of lettuce, I'm using a slightly different approach, just because I'm playing and having fun and just trying to see what different kinds of colors I can get while staying with the same mission of making sure that my little heads of lettuce at the bottom of the card panel are darker than the ones that are going to be, like floating up towards the top. So I'm doing really, really easy coloring here. I am focusing my darkest shades along the edges of the little lettuce and my lighter shades right in the little center of the leaves. And that poor little lettuce, I guess I forgot to color in his face earlier, but it's okay, we're taking care of him now. If you're just starting out coloring, this is a really good image to practice with because it's rounded, and I find that rounded images are easier to color in the beginning because it's easier to kind of tell where the shading is, because in a rounded image your shading is usually going to be like towards the middle of the stamp or of the little section of the stamp. As you can see, I'm making the centers of the leaves a little bit lighter than the rest, and I'm making the very edges of the leaves very dark, or I'm putting my darkest shades there. So we're just gonna finish up our darker little lettuces here in a second, and then we'll move on to some other green shades to start building in the next round of heads of lettuce that are gonna have a little bit of a brighter and lighter green into our scene. And to choose the colors, here I use my color wheel. So I'll show you what that looks like at the end of the video. So if you don't have a color wheel, I recommend that you get one. It's really, really helpful when you're trying to figure out what colors will look nicely together. And as I'll show you at the end of the video, the color wheel, you know, is able to tell me that if I mix the blue, violet, and the green, that those colors would be complementary and they would look nice together. So if you're, you know, somebody who has trouble just deciding what colors to use, I know I often do. It doesn't really come natural to me. I need a lot of help, either by being inspired by other artists or by looking at photographs or magazines or the color wheel. I need some help in just kind of figuring out what colors look nice together. So the color wheel is a good tool to help with that. All right, so now we're gonna start shading in our like mid-tone shades of the lettuces that we're gonna do, and we're gonna use some G40, G43, and then I don't remember what color I put on the very outside edges, G46. So these little mid-tone lettuces are, you know, using a pretty easy color scheme, and I think these are the Copic colors that I had recommended if you're looking into getting a starter set. So if you do have those, I would say, you know, you could probably get all of the ombre shades just using those three. So that would be a fun challenge to kind of try instead of using a lot of different markers like I did here. So now we're gonna start working on our lighter shades, and for the lighter heads of lettuce, I'm using YG11, YG13, and then a little bit of, I think that was G20, for another light tone to add in there. And okay, so YG13 is the darkest color that I use for those at the top. So now we have our little heads of lettuce colored in, and it's time to add the sentiment. And this is an adorable sentiment in the kit. It says, "Let us always be friends." I think this would be a really fun card to send to one of your friends. I think it's just adorable. And now we're gonna just add some fun little details to our little heads of lettuce, and I'm just adding some little white dots. And you know, I'm not really using any real pattern. I'm just putting some dots here and there on each of the little heads of lettuce. And this is also part of the Zen fun of this technique, is just kind of having fun and adding some, you know, just doing repetitive little motions and just kind of enjoying the process. And what I liked about adding the little white dots, I like seeing how much the scene started to pop as I filled in the darker heads of lettuce. I think the white against the dark green just really, really pops. And I also think that it kind of brings out the little lettuce's personality by giving them these little details. So I'm just going to finish up with that and then attach everything to a card base. Here is the color wheel I was telling you about. You could get this on Amazon for probably about like $5 to $10, and it's just a huge help. It'll let you know what colors go well together. All right, that's all I have for tonight, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you give this a try, and I will see you again next time.